Yes. Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to or welcome back to TBN. TBN. This is the live stream that nobody watches. I'm just kidding. This is the live stream where we focus down on the most unfun, least sexy part of vaping, arguably the most important part of anything that we do, and that is news, advocacy, science, legislation, policy, smoking, tobacco, nicotine, science. Did I say science? Science again.
Twice.
And the such as. I am your, bad libertarian, freedom-enjoying host, GrimmGreen, now joined by my far left fact checker. It's Danielle Jones. Woo, Danielle Jones.
You're far left fact checker.
I know. I need to stop saying far left.
You say that every time.
Center left. My center left fact checker. It's Danielle Jones. And then today we are joined by the, incomparable Amanda Wheeler. It's Amanda Wheeler. Hi, Amanda Wheeler.
Yay! Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on. Super happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being on here, and thank you so much for dealing with the weird schedule of canceling shows. I appreciate your flexibility, Amanda Wheeler, very much.
Oh, yeah. Happy to. I blame Southwest Airlines.
That's all. Me too. Samesies. Yeah, samesies. But thank you for being here. So basically, we're going to be here for about an hour and a half, and we're going to be just kind of picking through Amanda Wheeler's brain. There's so much that I don't know about Amanda Wheeler. I know a lot about her organizations, but we're going to talk about those as well. And, this American Vapor Manufacturers Association, which, without, I'm assuming, at least to my knowledge, that a lot of these companies would have never even been able to dream of having a PMTA application submitted. And I think, that's only due to Amanda and her organization. So I'd like to talk about that. I'd like to talk about all of that stuff. But welcome, you guys. I see you there in the chat. I appreciate you being there. Addie Tooney, Wim, Mallory Gates, my advocacy award-winning subscriber, Mallory Gates. You remember Mallory Gates on the Raja episode when she was tweeting like crazy. She was on fire. It was awesome. So I appreciate you being here, Mallory Gates. But I guess we'll just jump into this. We don't really have a newsy things or a main things. It's all going to be main things just because the topic is... the topic is what the topic has been, and that is vaping versus the FDA. Let's just go. Right into it. See, that's it. That's the only bumper you're going to see today. We're here with Amanda Wheeler. There is actually a few things that have happened since the last TBN. VUSE Solo got an authorization. I talked about this very briefly on the vlog last week, and I'm interested to hear your guys' response to this. Not necessarily that the VUSE Solo is such a great product, but... what does this mean? I feel like this is a good thing for vaping overall, as far as legitimizing the technology. What do you guys think?
Well, it's a very good thing for vaping, without a doubt. For the first time, we have one of these products designated as appropriate for the protection of public health. It's a wet blanket, though, because, they only approved the tobacco. The menthol is still in uncertain territory, and then they denied about 10 of those VUSE Solo flavors. But it's a huge landmark. We've been waiting to see this day for years. And so while it's sort of a mixed bag, it's still definitely an exciting development.
I think it's an exciting development, too. Do you think that this one little thing, this is obviously just the very first thing that's happening regulatorily, not the very first thing if you don't count all the MDOs, but as far as marketing approvals, this is the first one. There's going to be more. Do you think that this is helping change the public perception now that FDA has said, okay, wait, this in a tobacco is appropriate
for the
protection of public health? Do you think that's going to help change society? I know that's a big question, but I really think it is. Loaded question. You think it's going to help change?
Is that a question to me or
Sure,
Danielle?
Either or. Mostly you. I talk to Danielle all the time, so.
Nobody cares what I think.
I don't talk to Danielle nearly enough. So I'm excited.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that it will definitely change some public opinion, but I think the public has to sort of learn about it first. And I don't think there's a lot of widespread knowledge about this yet. I mean, we saw a couple of media articles run about it last week, but a lot of them were colored with, super negative context, talking about high VUSE youth among usage when it's an entirely different VUSE product. They would be referring to the Alto, and they were sort of conflating those two to still kind of put their negative media spin on it. So I think we've got a long way to go before we start to see any sort of change in public opinion. But I think this definitely sets up the groundwork, for that to start happening for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think one of the things that I found hysterical was that everybody in the media kept saying FDA approved a vape product. And we all know that they actually authorized it. None of this is FDA approved.
Right.
But I just sat back and was like, go ahead, say it. I don't care. Like, be wrong.
Say it's approved.
Right. The more the general public here is like, oh, FDA approved a vape product, to them, that sends the correct message, even though it's the incorrect language, saying that this is a less harmful alternative. This is appropriate for the protection of public health. So that little piece, I was kind of like, okay, go ahead. Do it. I ain't correcting anybody.
Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead. I wonder if VUSE solos saw any sort of like uptick in sales after this announcement, because I mean, FDA has been.
You can't find them anywhere.
You can't find them anywhere. I know. You can't. And so I went on a field trip last Wednesday all around Los Angeles, going to convenience stores and gas stations and head shops, trying to find a VUSE solo, and I could not find one anywhere in the greater Los Angeles area out of the 5 places I went to. And there was a few convenience store owners that just looked at me like I was crazy, like it's a product they had never heard of before. And I said, well, it's a little bit older. It's like 2018.
I was going to say, isn't it circa 2014 or something initially?
Is it 2014? I have no idea.
I thought
is
I
it
heard
that old?
That's when it originally came out.
Don't
quote me on that, but I thought I heard that.
Yeah, it's a cartomizer based. It's a cartomizer based disposable.
Yeah.
So whenever cartomizer technology was at its peak, that's probably when the VUSE came out.
Right, because I got into the vaping industry as a graphic designer around like 2013, 2014, and cartomizers were still definitely a thing. It was like right on the cusp of like rebuildables and RDAs, so it quickly moved that direction. But when I was first hired, I was doing all these cartomizer boxes and packaging and stuff like that. So it was definitely still. There was V2 and Blue and, everybody. And
that was a time when everybody was trying vaping and nobody stuck with it.
It was bad.
It was so many people. I tried vaping, way back in the day, and the tobacco tasted like, dried peanut shavings. And you go, oh, it's FDA just approved that exact dried peanut shaving flavor for you. So enjoy. It didn't work for a lot of people, but maybe it'll work for you.
Right.
It is kind of ridiculous that, I keep coming back to this idea that FDA definitely is aware that flavors enhance cessation through NRTs. Why can't they make this leap to vaping? Why is that so difficult for them? They know that flavors help.
They can, but the problem is they put so much weight on the potential initiation and attractiveness to youth that to them, even though they know that it helps, it's not worth the risk, right? It's not worth the potential for it. And so this like weighting that they do in their little FDA minds is so out of whack that nothing else, can counter that.
Yeah. Nothing else can counter that. Now, Amanda, when you were submitting PMTAs, how hopeful were you? Like, how optimistic were you that, well, maybe one of these PMTAs is going to get like an approval order? Where were your hopes?
Well, we kind of went into it on kind of blind faith as, this is something that needs to be done. we're going to give it our very best effort, and so when we submitted last year, I think Shar Owen worked really hard on this, making the tools available for all these companies to be able to submit.
Mm-hmm.
A few people were involved in that effort. Lindsay Stroud was pretty involved in helping companies submit PMTAs, and we all went for it. We got about 230 companies applied on. Oh, I don't know. I want to say about 5.5 million products. Like, we did a lot of people's PMTAs that, helping them, get the tools they needed to submit. And, we went into it as underdogs, of everybody kind of telling us, why are you wasting your time on this? You're never going to get accepted. And then, we started watching all of these PMTAs get accepted, and then people went, oh, well, you're never going to get filed. That was just a fluke. Like, you
Right.
turned it in, so they accepted it. And then all of our PMTAs started to get filed. And then we were like, oh boy, we're in the game now. We've got an actual shot at this.
Yeah.
And then some of the PMTAs that we did for the small and medium-sized businesses started moving into review. And then we started getting deficiency letters, which, that's your opportunity to go get in this dialogue with FDA about what additional data they want from you, and, being able to satisfy that data. And It was going really well. We were responding, we were helping companies respond to deficiencies. FDA was giving us extensions to respond to deficiencies on top of, the 90 days that's required.
I didn't know that was like a thing. FDA allowed. So if FDA said in your PMTA XYZ isn't blah blah blah, isn't
it's missing, or it's
missing,
complete.
incomplete, they let you. They would have like an open dialogue where you could fix it, or.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
They
that's
were being
very interesting.
really reasonable and really decent. They would issue deficiencies in some of the testing items that they would want. Companies would go under contract with labs to get those done, and then they would show FDA, where they were under contract, when the expected date was to deliver that information to them. And they were being super, super reasonable. And then all of a sudden, about, I don't know, I want to say maybe around late July, early August. That's when you could really tell that, something happened on the back end of FDA. It got super political, right there before that deadline. And then they just tossed everybody out. They chose this one super arbitrary, brand new requirement that nobody had ever seen before. It wasn't in the original guidance. It wasn't in any deficiency letter we had seen from FDA. We didn't hear about this until those MDOs. And, it was this new thing, like Danielle was saying, where they were saying that we had to prove that there was benefit to flavored liquids over tobacco flavored liquids that outweighed the degree to which youth used flavored liquids. And super brand new requirement. That's what you see. The basis of a lot of these court suits now is based on that new requirement being, creeping in at the last minute, asking us to prove something false that they never proved to be true in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That seems crazy to me. And one of the lawsuits I was reading was saying that this was a new product standard, right? They implemented a new product standard, but did it by circumventing all of the processes that they need to go through in order to implement this new product standard. And
like it was a de facto product standard, basically, or something.
Right? Is that right?
I mean, it's an argument that they're making.
Huh.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, we'll have to see, how the courts feel about that. But yeah, that is an argument that I've seen, because it's a way of enacting a flavor ban through regulatory decision making, right?
Yeah.
When the appropriate way to do that is through rulemaking and comment period, all that sort of thing. So it certainly appears, right? It certainly appears that they are enacting a flavor ban through regulatory decision making.
It's all you can do is shake your head. You just go, oh my God. I
mean, and isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the lawsuit that wound up changing the deadline, which was American Academy of Pediatrics and all the ANTS groups v. FDA, the Judge Grimm case, that was essentially on a similar topic, if I remember correctly. They were saying that Gottlieb, circumvented the, APA, rulemaking process to change the deadline, and therefore the deadline change was null and void, and then they set a new one, et cetera, et cetera. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the grounds of that lawsuit. And it's interesting because they're, in a way, I'm not a lawyer. Please don't take not
this
a
is
lawyer.
Not legal advice.
No, and I'm probably misinterpreting things here, but it seems slightly similar to me that particular argument that they're making is kind of saying the same thing, right? That FDA is essentially making rules or standards without going through this like laborious process that they are required by law to go through. So that I find interesting.
I feel like that's a leg that's like a stand-onable leg for a lawsuit, in my opinion. I feel like that has some merit behind it because it's absolutely true. And they were releasing product standards after they had already sent out MDOs. They issued a final guidance post millions of MDOs. I mean, how's that? That's unbelievable to me. I hope some of these lawsuits are mentioning that.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole way that this has been handled from beginning to end has just been a complete mess. They're sort of making this up as they go along, it seems like.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we know from that quote from Mitch Zeller, when was that? Years ago, when he was expecting a 200 something. He estimated 200 or 300 vape companies, 200 or 300 vape PMTA, applications total would go through. I mean, we knew that they were, woefully underprepared for this.
Yeah.
Woefully underprepared. And my favorite part of all of it is when it got to that date that the FDA, what was it, September 9th? They had that cutoff date. The date just came and went, and the FDA was like, sorry. We don't have anything. We're not going to make this date. We're not going to announce anything. We're not going to approve anything. We can't make this date. Sorry. It's like, okay.
I guess we just wait.
Yeah, I guess we just wait some more. And that's the hardest part of this is the waiting, the everything up in the air-ness of it. Has anybody heard anything about, I know that a lot of these sort of 28 vape companies that are challenging their MDOs in court, this is kind of a just kicking off. Is there like a time frame for how long these lawsuits take? I know there's been lawsuits in the industry that are still going on and have been going on for a very long time. So, I get hopeful when I see the TPB are back under review. But then again, I don't know how much longer this is going to add to this process. Is there an end date for any of these lawsuits, or is it all just question marks? Does anybody know? Because I don't.
It's all question marks. I mean, litigation can stretch on for years because these cases are starting out in the U.S. Federal Court of Appeals. But if there is some decision favorable to the company, there may be an appeal of that appeal to a higher court. These things can stretch on forever. So I think the thing to watch is really if these stays start coming down, right? Which we've seen some administrative stays, but that's like the shorter term stay to like the short term stay, right? So you ask for a stay while you're waiting for that whole multi-year process of the case being decided.
Yeah.
But right now, what some companies are starting to get are administrative stays while they're waiting for the proper stay hearing. And so we've seen some early good developments happen, but to get to any kind of final determination on these cases, if they're litigated, will take years for sure.
Yeah. Dang, years. And we've been waiting years, and we're just going to continue waiting years. But like you said on Twitter, I don't know where exactly you said it, Amanda, you said dominoes are falling. And I just like that. Mm-hmm. I like that. The idea that the winds are changing, the tides are changing just a little bit. One domino falls, a few dominoes fall. But I do see FDA taking back those Turning Point products back under review as like a definite shift. It's like, well, that was a little shift. Just a little shift, but it kind of like changes the whole landscape.
Well, I wanted to ask Amanda, because it seemed like to me, and I want to get your thoughts on this, it seemed like to me that FDA had essentially, like, in writing, admitted that they had not properly looked at Turning Point brand. Like, here they are saying, oh, yeah, there was a whole stack of data, and we just didn't review it. We didn't look at it. Yeah. And I feel like that could be used, I'm not a lawyer, again, but it could be used later to say like, well, if you weren't looking at them then, why should we believe that you're looking at them now? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Right. I mean, it's true. I mean, FDA in their rescission of that, they sort of went mea culpa, right? Like, my bad, we didn't look at it. You did have this information in here. You're right. We're going to pull you back into review. And then as a result of that, Turning Point voluntarily dismissed their court case. Obviously, they got that was the best outcome that they could hope for in court. So, obviously at that point, it makes sense for them to withdraw their case and go back into that review process with FDA. But yeah, I mean, it was very blatant on the face of it for what it was. FDA was sloppy. They were handing out MDOs like it was nothing. I mean, they were all worded exactly the same, copy paste, change the company name on it, send it out, right? It was a mess how they were doing this. It was total chaos. A lot of companies saw their name show up on that public list weeks before they ever received any kind of communication from FDA.
Whoa.
Right?
That
Seeing
is
their
so
name on some
inappropriate.
spreadsheet
Whoa.
posted on the internet was how they were informed that their application was denied and that FDA was killing their business, right? FDA didn't even give many people a courtesy phone call or a courtesy email. They just threw people's names up on this list kind of wholesale indiscriminately.
Whoa.
And you've got all qualities of applications, applications, from smaller companies that didn't have a lot of, money behind them. You've got applications that had 20, 30, $40 million behind them, all getting pushed into the same decision with the same copy paste letter. And there's no way that in a 1-year time frame, FDA actually looked at everything they denied to truly see what was in there. So it was very sloppy, and I think FDA has some egg on their face, right, with what happened with Turning
Definitely.
Point, and now with what's happening. There was another interesting one today for my vape order. That was, I haven't seen the actual letter from FDA yet, but they updated their MDO list today to state that FDA had issued a stay to my vape orders MDO, which super interesting development. So there's more of these, even on FDA's end, that they're catching right now, that they're going, wow, we really messed up here. My vape order, they also had a court case pending, but their relief didn't come through the court system. Their relief came directly from FDA, staying that MDO that they had issued. So very interesting situation. At least twice now we've seen FDA acknowledge that some mistakes were made, some MDOs that they're not going to stand behind them, that they're going to pull those back. And then, in a couple of these cases, you're seeing the court system, take a look at this and they say, we think there's something there. We're going to stay these MDOs while we take a deeper look at this. So definitely egg on their face right now.
Right. Like if I'm DOJ, who's like responsible for, being the FDA's lawyer, right? I am probably looking at this, again, not a lawyer, but looking at this and going, oh my God, no, this is chaos. What are you guys doing? Like, you make mistakes here, you make mistakes there, you're rescinding this, you're putting this back. Like, I don't know. It just seems really sketchy to a layman. I can't imagine that DOJ or other people are really thrilled with this, because it seems like it is, rife with opportunity for potential lawsuits.
Well, it is. And, a lot of the lawyers and law firms that typically represent the industry that are used to dealing with FDA, even the attorneys are baffled by what's going on. So it's not just, us not being lawyers that we don't understand this.
I feel
lawyers,
better.
The professional legal representatives of the industry are looking at this going, what the hell are they doing? It's outrageous.
This is not a good look for them, in my opinion, especially at a time when, unrelated to this, they need, like credibility with the public. This is not, for anybody who's really deep into this and paying attention, this is not helping them look, like they know what they're doing, essentially.
Not at all. Not at all. No. Sorry I missed all that. I had to give my schnauzer some more hydrogen peroxide, trying to get her to throw up. She's just sitting there. She looks fine. She's just laying there in her office, in my wife's office, just like, yep, I ate some raisins, and I'm not going to throw them up. And I'm like, okay, you will. I will make you barf, young dog. Anyway.
I didn't know that you could give living thing's hydrogen peroxide to drink. I'm gonna go ahead and say I had no idea.
They say give your dog hydrogen peroxide, just a capful, and they just go, oh, why'd you do that? And then they go, and then throw up whatever they had. But I don't know. Maybe my dog likes the taste of hydrogen peroxide. That could be a thing too. It's okay. I just have to step out of the room every once in a while to check on my schnauzer. But where do we leave off? What were you guys talking about? What did I miss? I'm just kidding.
So we were just talking about basically how the FDA looks like they're in a world of trouble because of all these weird mistakes that they've been making and these inconsistent things and all of the lawsuits. And I was mentioning that if I'm, the Department of Justice, who is responsible for being the lawyers, basically the defense lawyers of the government agencies. So they would have to defend FDA in these lawsuits. I would be looking at this and going, what did you do?
Yeah. What did you do? The problem, I think FDA is trying to appease everybody. And by doing that, they're appeasing nobody. They pulled all these products off of the market, MDOs, and then immediately looked at the prohibitionists and Campaign for Tobacco for Kids and went, huh? Look at what we did. Oh, you're not happy? Okay. And then they're approve a tobacco thing. And they're oh, look at what we did. We approved no, you're not happy? Okay. It's like trying to appeal to everybody. You're trying to appease everybody. And in the process, you end up appeasing nobody. We get no good vapes. Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids are still mad. Still mad. Nobody's happy. Nobody's happy. The parents aren't happy. I mean, just thank God that Erin Mills turned her attention away from vaping. That's what I've been thankful for recently.
Well, what is she paying attention to now?
Yeah, she's on the fentanyl train. She's Joe Biden needs to clear opioids off the market because if you look at fentanyl, you'll die. She's just very, very misinformed about. You surprised?
Prohibitionists gotta prohibit.
Prohibitionists gotta prohibit. So let's. Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny. It's funny to me. At least she's not talking about vaping anymore.
I mean, that's true.
One less Twitter troll, right?
One less Twitter troll. So and there's 4 that spring up every single day. Anyway, speaking of what?
I was going to say, speaking of PMTAs, today, breaking news, we just got a second authorization, right? Verve. So everybody in chat probably has no idea what this is. And that would make sense because it's an oral nicotine product that was apparently discontinued at the beginning of 2019. You can't buy it. But before it was discontinued, they did apply for a PMTA, and it has just been authorized. So it's not gum. I'm a little confused about exactly what it is. It's weird discs and things that you chew on.
It's literally just called a disc. They're Verve discs.
It's some sort of oral product that is nicotine, but not smokeless tobacco or anything like that. It's more like a pouch, but it's a weird thing that you sort of chew on. It was approved in, interestingly, mint flavors. Several mint flavors.
Get out of here. Mint. Yeah, I saw that. The University of Michigan, Cliff Douglas retweeted, just out, FDA tobacco. Next set of authorized products under the PMTA process has just been announced, appropriate for the protection of public health. The brand name is Verve, and they are all mint flavored. And not on the market anymore, as Danielle Jones pointed out. If you go to the Verve website, it says, we're so terribly sorry, but we're stopping production of Verve products this August 2019. So these products aren't even on the market anymore. How does a company accidentally get a PMTA approved? Meanwhile, there are hundreds of other companies that are trying to get a PMTA approved, but they just get MDOs. But then Verve is accidentally did we do that PMTA? I guess it got approved. I don't even remember doing it, you guys. That's crazy. It's for a product that we don't even sell anymore. Thanks, FDA, but, crazy. That's unbelievable to me.
I know this isn't true, but it feels like FDA is looking through the pile and being like, what is the least popular, worst product? Let's approve those.
That's what it feels like.
So they can't say we didn't approve anything,
Yeah.
but no one's going to use them, so we're fine. Like,
yes.
I don't think that's what they're actually doing, but it sure feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, they show the public that they're approving reduced harm tobacco products, right? But not the products that Campaign for Tobacco for Kids would get mad about, and not the products that any consumers would actually use.
Yep.
That's where we're at with FDA.
Next PMTA, Mark 10. You heard it here first.
Mark 10. Yeah,
That's the
Amanda called it. Amanda called it.
Use Solo and the Verve. Next up, Mark 10.
Unbelievable.
It's saved, guys. People are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Exactly.
Smokers don't even trip anymore. You got Verve and Mark 10. VUSE Solo and Mark 10.
Oh, no.
No, but you bring up a good question. I would like to be in the decision-making process of these companies when they're deciding to spend all of these resources on these products that are just commercially non-viable.
Yeah.
And of course, if FDA does only, authorize these types of, dinosaur products and discontinued products, then they may be marketable again. But I don't see that happening. I mean, what is the thinking behind, submitting these products that just, commercially aren't going to do a thing?
And why would the company
answer to that one?
I don't know the answer to that. And
is that like you're so rich that you're just like, oh, PMTA, whatever.
Yeah,
we'll do it over the weekend.
Verve PMTA.
200 million on it. Whatevsies. We probably won't keep. Like, is that what being rich is? You just like on a whim file a PMTA and not care if it like your product is viable? I don't know. That's like ridiculous money if that's the situation.
It seems crazy silly to go through the whole process and spend all the money on a product that's doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so they filed, I looked at the dates of this because I was curious about it. They filed their PMTA, or rather FDA received it July of 2018, and then they decided that they were going to discontinue the product December of 2018, and then like February of 2019 was like the cutoff date for when you could buy it online or whatever. So like within 6 months of submitting the PMTA, they then decided, we're not going to sell this anymore. Weird.
Really weird. Really very bizarre. But again, man, if I wasn't such like a critically thinking, logical person, it's easy to jump to that conclusion of FDA is just approving useless products that nobody's going to use. Like it almost, if you take your brains out, it seems deliberate. But I cannot be so cynical as to think that it could possibly be deliberate. I know FDA is not a spectacular organization, and I know they're under ridiculously, tremendous amounts of political pressure from politicians that don't know what they're talking about. They're just putting pressure on FDA for no reason. But I also can't be that cynical as to think it's deliberate.
And the other thing to keep in mind, though, is from what I understand, Verve and VUSE were some of the most earliest submitted PMTAs, right?
Yeah.
Verve was July
Verve.
2018, and I want to say VUSE, I think I heard it was in 2018 also. So this could also be, I'm not trying to defend FDA, that is not my job.
Yeah,
but it could also be a matter of like first in, first out situation. You know what I mean? They had these PMTAs for longer.
That makes way more sense. That is
I don't
actually
know if Amanda has
like
thoughts on that, but
Amanda?
it's a guess.
No, that's
That
totally
makes sense.
true, because the far more popular VUSE Alto products were filed much later than the VUSE Solo, and it makes sense about Verb that that this is an older PMTA, and commercial decisions were made after filing that PMTA. But yeah, it's not our job to logically explain the FDA. Let's just laugh at their poor decision making.
Yeah, I mean,
I support that.
It'd be funny if it wasn't so insanely depressing. Depressing.
Yeah, because I mean, take the commercial viability out of it. Just what happened with the VUSE Solo is a huge portent of things to come, right? Tobacco approved, all flavors denied. Menthol's on the shelf to be decided later because they literally don't
Yeah.
know what to do about the menthol issue in vape. And, you know, and Danielle and I were looking this up before the show started about all of the products that have had menthol approved in them, right? Because you've got Snooze has some mint flavors. You've got Verve with these mint flavors. IQOS was approved with some mint flavors, but they stopped short of approving the VUSE Solo menthol. They threw that back into this, you know, sort of to be determined category. And I think that's a pretty good indication of where everything is going here. They don't want to put these flavors through. I think they really probably aren't fans of putting menthol through, but they're still trying to decide how they're going to handle that. And to me, that's just, you know, the rest of it's funny, but that's the part to me that is truly concerning for all of the vape companies that are still in the process and appealing the process, right? Like Turning Point, they're back in the process, but, you know, who is to say that their fate on their flavors is going to be any better this time around? You know, if I'm sure Reynolds spent quite a lot of money on those VUSE Solo flavors, you know, collecting all of that data, providing the science.
Yeah.
And, you know, even with that level of resources thrown at it, those flavors were denied. So it'll be interesting to see if any flavors get treated fairly throughout all of this. And I'm not hopeful about it. You know, for the longest time, I was hopeful that FDA was going to be fair. You know, they were being fair, and then it got political, and I anticipate it to stay political unless they are otherwise forced to change course through litigation, you know, through some intense, you know, political pressure coming from a different direction. You know, I think something major is going to happen in order for them to reverse course on flavors at this point.
I completely agree with Amanda. At this point, I would put my money on we're not getting flavors. And I know some people in chat are making comments. For the sake of this conversation, when we say flavors, we're talking about things other than tobacco and typically menthol.
Yeah.
I know that everything is a flavor, including tobacco. Of course, we know this. But by FDA's terminology, flavors, non-tobacco menthol. So I think the only way we're going to get flavors is through litigation, basically. I think we're going to have to sue to get flavors. I don't even know if it's going to work, but I think that's, at this point, all indication says that FDA is not going to do it on their own. So my guess would be, you know, the courts are the only ones that are going to potentially help us get flavors.
Like, that's such a cruddy way to get flavors through too, because it's not good optically. It looks bad. It makes it look like, oh, that evil vape industry, they forced FDA to do, you know, what FDA didn't want to do. And like FDA's reluctantly having to admit, oh, maybe, you know, this flavor or whatever. Like, I want flavors to exist. Like, I want vaping and flavors to exist. But man, what a cruddy way to have to get it done. You know, and I feel like it could turn more people off from vaping.
I don't know.
We're forcing, like, look, American Cancer Society, American Heart Association, American Lung Association, for all intents and purposes, they're, with the exception of vape spaces, they're very well respected. So the idea that these things, and FDA gets held up there despite their shortcomings, FDA still gets held up there. I mean, they still get held up there as far as what FDA says goes.
It's true. I mean, you can look at, you know, we've seen this play out before with tobacco companies, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they've had to sue before to get things changed because technically, you know, probably it wasn't actually fair to them and they were able to legally prove that. But of course, everyone in the world, I mean, fairly is like, oh, they're evil. And they're, you know, I remember there was a some kind of report that FDA or somebody, I can't remember which agency it was, put out saying that like menthol was bad. This was a number of years ago and people shouldn't have menthol. And that report actually wound up getting retracted because of a lawsuit. A couple tobacco companies sued because there were conflicts of interest with some of the people who had written the report because they also worked for like pharma companies or consulted for them. And so they've done this before, right? And I'm sure at the time people are like, oh, you know, this is, people see it as like a cheap or rather expensive way to like get around something or get something done by the evil tobacco companies. But after time passes, I think nobody really remembers it. So I would sort of imagine that if we had to, get flavors by way of litigation, I think maybe for a little while people would be like, oh, that was a shitty way to do it. But then after a few years, nobody remembers.
When smoking rates just drop off the face of the earth, then we'll go, okay, that was a fine way to get it done. It's an unfortunate way to get it done, but I guess ultimately it's a fine way to get it done. Part of me, there's a big part of me that is really, really rooting for the FDA. Like, I want FDA to just say enough with the political pressure, enough with Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, enough with all of this. We're following the science. Here's what the science says. Let's end smoking. Like, a big part of me wants to root for the FDA to do that. That's like,
do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Like, just follow the science, do the right thing, and just help public health and save lives. I want to root for the FDA to do that.
Me too.
Right?
Too. Unfortunately, that's not the way it's shaking out. It looked like for a time they might do that. I mean,
it did.
Here's the thing: Mitch Zeller knows better.
Yes,
he 100% knows better because he has been making statements on this subject for years, and that's what's so upsetting. There are people inside the FDA that think definitely know better, but they're caving to pressure right now, and making these demands of companies, and I think they're looking the other way while they put, the vast majority of open systems manufacturers promptly out of business, or, force them to seek alternatives, moving to TFN, that sort of thing. They know better. They know better, and they know damn good and well they're creating secondary problems that they're going to have to come deal with, in pretty short order in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
It's just compounding a mess and making it far worse than it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, 800%. And, is this the mentality of, oh, we'll let the next guard deal with that. We'll solve these problems and cause other problems, but we don't have to worry about things like the black market or future implications because that's for the next administration to clean up that mess.
That's the problem with politics, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the problem and the promise, right? The promise, it's good that it's not forever, but at the same time, people love to kick the can down the road because it's not going to be their problem at some point.
Yes.
I wanted to tell you, I have this weird little imaginary visualization that I do sometimes to make myself feel better.
Sure.
So I imagine that there's this group of 5 little nerdy renegades within FDA, and they don't have a ton of power, but they love vaping and they think it's dope and they know it's real. And they try in their tiny little way. It's like mailroom clerks. There's 5 mailroom clerks at FDA who really try to help. And every once in a while, something weird happens and you're like, that seems strangely positive. Yep. And I'll jump up and be like, it's my 5 guys. They finally got an idea through at the conference. I have this tiny little, but that goes to Amanda's point is there are people that know better.
They do.
I pretend that we have a little team trying to change things from the inside, but that's mostly just to make myself feel better.
And I do that too. I do things to make myself feel better. It's like thinking that there's scientists at FDA who are maybe raising a little bit of a stink about this. And maybe when those TPB products came back under review, they're like, I told you, yes. Thankfully, these, I like to think that there's the noble people within the FDA
right.
that are really going to turn things
around. I hope they're there.
And science. And I mean, it would be a glorious thing. It would be a glorious, beautiful thing. But unfortunately, that's just not where we're at. Now, if we're looking towards the future, we talk about tides changing and winds shifting and dominoes falling. Let's just wildly speculate 1 year, 2022, October 2022. Let's wildly speculate about what's going on. I think a menthol pod will be approved by then.
I want to know what Amanda thinks.
I want to know what Amanda thinks, too.
I want to know what Amanda thinks.
I know what Amanda thinks, too. 1 year.
A year from today, do I think a menthol pod is going to be approved?
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's more than a fighting chance of that. I would say probably so. to me, the bigger question, and I mean, it's because it's the part of the industry I roll in. No offense to any pod users out there.
Right.
The bigger question to me is, are we going to see any kind of open systems? Even if it's a tobacco, right?
Tobacco e-liquid,
Because
right,
there,
right.
because there have been so many people for so long that have been speculating if any open systems product can get through the FDA, just because it's an open systems product. It can be modified, it can be altered, they can be used in endless combinations, right? And for many reasons we don't need to get into the weeds on, a lot of people think that those types of products can't meet FDA requirements, right? That there's no way that you can show the FDA all of the data on the ways that those products can be used in combination, what kind of compounds they would give off in all of these different
wattages,
combinations. The fact that you can't necessarily prevent things from being added in with the liquids. And so to me, I want to know what FDA is going to do about open systems, right? Because there's a lot of hypocrisy that's been going on when you only grant applications to big tobacco companies that you've spent years railing against, right? And meanwhile, you've paid lip service for years to small businesses, making a pathway for them, taking them into account. I want to see if any open systems are actually going to get through at the end of the day. That would be probably my bigger question on where we're at from a year from now. Menthol pod, I'd say there's probably a great shot of that happening within the next year. Any open systems, I don't know. It'll be interesting. As our biggest, most well-funded open systems makers are having to claw their way back through this process to even be in the runnings right now. And so it's really crazy what's happening.
So open vapor, we're talking about bottles of e-liquid. That's what had to go through the PMTA process, right? Not necessarily this 3D printed 18650 mechanical mod.
Well, there's some hardware, right?
Is there hardware? Is there open vapor hardware going through the PMTA process?
I think there were a couple.
Yeah, there is.
There is. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, I had no idea. I guess I didn't realize that hardware was going through it as well. For some reason, I thought that hardware wasn't going to be like a thing because it's not a finished tobacco product.
No,
there was a lot of hardware that was submitted, and for the liquid companies, a lot of the liquid companies, when they were doing some of their HPHC testing, which is the testing you have to do for what chemicals are put off when you aerosolize and vaporize the liquid, you have to vaporize it on some particular piece of hardware in the lab to test the vapor, right? And so a lot of the hardware companies that were going through the PMTA process were contributing hardware to some of the liquid companies because they wanted as much data as they could get on, what possible combinations could be used with this hardware. So there definitely are a lot of hardware companies attempting to go through this process, and that is not getting talked about a lot right now because none of those have been denied to my knowledge yet. But obviously also there hasn't been any kind of forward positive action on any of those either.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's weird. That's a whole nother wild card hardware that I haven't even really been thinking about because I've had the mindset of the TPB products are bottled e-liquid for the most part. Am I wrong? It's the majority of it is bottled e-liquid, right?
Now keep in mind, I don't know their company super well,
sure,
but I believe that they also filed on some coils and tanks and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at a report
I've been told that by some people that work for them. I don't know a huge amount about it though.
That's interesting. That clarifies a lot for me because I was thinking, well, if they're just bottled e-liquids and that's what they're considering open vapor, if a bottled e-liquid gets a PMTA marketing approval order, then you're gonna need to vape it in something.
Right. No, I'm looking at a report that says, Smoke filed for like 43 different products. This is all hardware: Vaporesso, Inikin, Dovpo, Freemax, Horizon Tech, Aspire, names that we know, right? There are definitely people that filed for hardware. I don't know what's going to happen, but it did. And when people say finished tobacco product, I think that there is a misunderstanding about that, and Amanda might know better than I do, but for all of the reading that I have done, FDA considers anything that is sold directly to the consumer a finished product. It doesn't matter if you still need to, put something together to do something with it. If it is sold at the consumer level, it is a finished product. If it needs to be sold to another company, if it is a B2B transaction that requires more processing, that would be an unfinished product. But I think that I heard some confusion on that definition, and I think that anything to the consumer is finished. So hardware.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we're not allowed in vape shops to sell single coils anymore, right? Because when they're in the multi-pack, that's the finished product. And if you break them down in a vape shop to sell them as single coils, then you're creating like a new product because you're altering what would be considered a finished product. and that's the whole reason. And I'm still salty about this. Like 5 years later, I'm still mad about the single coil sales. But
I don't blame you.
Wow.
Yeah. No, our customers were so mad about that. It took forever for customers to stop being mad about that. Like, why do I have to buy them 3, 4, 5 at a time? I just need one.
I mean, if you're somebody who you need that paycheck, you got a lot of bills, you got a lot of different stuff. Why do I need to buy 5 coils?
Yeah.
I only need one for like the next month, maybe if it's a good tank, I don't know, then next month I'll deal with that coil, I do feel for those people. I hear you, Amanda's angry customers.
Yeah.
I feel for you.
Yeah.
That is annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, that is annoying. Well, so, hey, Amanda, let's get to know Amanda Wheeler a little bit. I think I met you a long time ago, but I don't remember the exact circumstances. I think I met you before the rally, but I would like to know, what is your history with smoking and vaping? I'm sure you've told this 1,000 times, but you haven't told it to me, so that's why I'm asking. What's your story with vaping, smoking to vaping, and starting JVAPES, and like, how is that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, so JVAPES is our company, my husband and I's company.
Yes.
It was started in 2011, so it's one of the
Old
older
school
vape companies. We've been around for about a decade.
Oh, gee.
Yeah,
OG.
my husband wanted to make sure to let you know that like he was watching you from the very earliest days.
Oh,
and
rad.
you helped him a ton in his early vaping journey. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, JVAPES is pretty OG in the vaping industry. A lot of people that have been around a long time know about us. We used to be cool, like back in the day, like 2014.
Some street cred. You guys had some street cred. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Jordan and I joke about it because back in the day when JVapes was cool, right? We would like go to expos and stuff. And, he would be the one everybody would run up to, like, oh, JVapes, yellow sub, Jordan.
Yeah.
Right. And now, like, when we go places, everybody's like, oh, it's Amanda Wheeler. And I'm like, haha, don't you miss? It was really, it's just we flip flopped over the years, right? Like, back when like our company was kind of cool, everybody knew my husband, and now the advocacy is like this big nightmare. Everybody knows who I am, so it's super funny. But yeah, I mean, we started our company. My husband was like a 2 to 3 pack a day smoker, big time, heavy smoker.
It's a lot of cigarettes.
And 1 week he was going into the smoke shop to buy his 2 cartons of cigarettes, as was his habit. And he could tell this story better than I could, so I don't remember all the specifics on what it was he bought, but it was like one of like the very first vapes. It was like super terrible, it tasted terrible. Like I think he was buying juice on the internet from like one of 2 or 3 companies you could buy it from, and not great quality. But this was like back in 2009.
Yeah.
He was actually able to quit smoking, and it was the first time anything helped, because he had tried hypnosis, acupuncture, not to mention like the normal stuff, right? Cold turkey, patches, gums. He even like went like a step further to like hypnosis, acupuncture, like nothing worked, but like vaping worked for him, and he thought it was so cool, right? And so he had this idea that like this could be better, right? This is so great, but it's so far from what it could be, right? And so, that's when, he and a friend of his, and please keep in mind, this was way back in the day. Don't fault us for this, right? They were like mixing e-liquid, right? Like like their apartment and like selling it at the swap meet, right?
Yes. Dude,
and
some of the
that's
first.
how JVapes got
That's
started. It was
early
old
days.
school,
That's
That's how it was. Some of the first e-liquids I ever bought were from just a guy on ECF. I don't know if anybody remembers Walrus, but Walrus used to make liquids, and he made like a peanut butter cup, and he's like, hey, I'm selling 10 mil bottles of my DIY. And it was just it looks like motor oil in a little e-liquid bottle. He's like, it's peanut butter cup. It's like, okay, $10. All right. I just bought it. That's how it was back then. We were just mixing liquids,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just mixing liquids, selling it at the
Yeah.
swap meet. And then in 2011, so next month it'll be our 10-year anniversary, right? So we got a 400 square foot store, right? With the lab in the back of this 400 square foot store. And
Yes.
we thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened. It was in Prescott, Arizona, where I live now. That was our first location. And when I tell you we had a line around the block, like we had a line around the block, right? And it was crazy. And our business just sort of developed from there. Of course, like, I was also a smoker. Even though I should have definitely known better, I had cancer when I was 19.
Oh, good
I still
Lord.
smoked for years and years and years after that, just because I could not quit. Absolutely. I didn't go to like all those acupuncture links that my husband went through, but I definitely tried, cold turkey, patches, gum, all of that. Like nothing worked, but the vape worked for him, right? He's like honestly the most addicted smoker I knew in my life at that point. Worked for him. So, I tried it, worked for me. And our business just really came out of like this personal experience of vaping, right? It's like, if this can help him, who is like the most addicted, desperate smoker I've ever met, right? It can definitely help other people, right? And so, our business didn't start off as a business. It started off as like something that we were really into personally, just from personal transformation and just something that we thought should be available to people. We thought it would be really revolutionary, and turns out it was, right?
Yeah.
Our business has grown over the years. We have 5 stores.
Amazing.
We're opening our 6th store right now, which is super exhausting.
Woo!
Yeah,
I love that you're opening a shop right now.
right?
That makes me
this is-
more happy than, that's unbelievable. I love this so much.
I know people probably think that we're nuts, but
You're not.
yeah,
you
but
are,
it's in
but
the Phoenix metro
Who
area.
cares?
So it's
Who
about
cares?
an hour and a half from where we live. So we've been like driving 2 hours down and 2 hours back every day working on the store. There's a lot to be done. We had to take out, as we took over an existing vape shop, a very nice, very devoted couple who just, with like all of the uncertainty and craziness right now, they just couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
And so they were just really concerned that their business go to somebody that really cared about it and would take care of it. And so, we're taking over that and turning it into JVAPE's 6th retail location. So it's very exciting. I know people probably think we're nuts doing that on the heels of all these MDOs and stuff, but that also is a side effect of being involved in this for a decade. Like we've been through like all of this, like,
ups
oh my
and
God,
downs.
we're all going to be put
Yep.
out of business. Vaping is being shut down, close it all up. And we've been through that too many times. Right. And so, there are people out there who need these products. There are people out there that are still smoking, and so we're still going to be here doing what we've always done, so it's a scary time, but it's also an exciting time, because like, while I don't know exactly how this is all going to work out, I don't believe this is the final chapter in vaping's history by any means. Not by any means.
Good
where
Lord.
there's a will, there's a way, right? And
Yeah.
so we have our 6th store now. We manufacture liquid, which is obviously why I'm like leading this PMTA charge, because we had to do an application. We're subject to all of these requirements. So we used to sell online, but the PACT Act killed that. We had like a really big online business as well, and it was a shame about that, because our online business, it was a very important part of our business to us. Is a lot of 2 of our stores are located near military bases, right? And so we have customers who are stationed at a particular military base,
Sure,
and they,
sure,
sort of fall
absolutely.
in love with our liquid. And then, when they move around to other bases or they get deployed overseas, they would buy online from us, right?
Yep, yep.
And it's like just kind of like a terrible thing that was taken away, because it's like, it's not just kids buying online, right? Like, we had all of these, like, I don't think kids are buying online. I don't think the research ever really showed that. Maybe like they're buying on TikTok, but that's not buying through reputable
No,
online vendors.
that's
But
the black
just
market.
right. It just made me so mad, because it's like the people that were shut out from vaping are like our troops that are deployed overseas now,
Yep,
because they can't buy
yep.
the stuff that they used to buy online. It's such a bad situation. It's such a bad deal. But so as of right now, we still have our manufacturing business. We still have our retail business, and and we're still doing the same thing that we've been doing this whole time, which is just trying to help people quit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's incredible. And, I know you're not going to talk yourself up, but the American Vaping Manufacturers Association is a big deal. That's a very big deal. And I feel like, and I mean, I don't even have to say I feel like, without it, none of these manufacturers, small, medium-sized manufacturers, would have had a pipe dream of getting a PMTA. And I mean, I remember back in 2016 seeing the final deeming rules, and just thinking, well, these are custom tailored by Big Tobacco for Big Tobacco. I mean, the Big Tobacco is going to be the only companies that can afford to get through this. And then along comes the American Vapor Manufacturers Association, and suddenly all the companies that we know and love can be a part of the process. And that wouldn't be possible without the American Vapor Manufacturers Association. So thank you, Amanda Wheeler, for that. Because that's a really big deal. I mean, that's a really big deal.
Well, I appreciate it. AVM, it really was just started as like, for the small and medium companies that just weren't ready to have FDA and Big Tobacco stomp out their businesses, right?
Yeah.
There were tons of companies that had no intention of applying until we started doing what they were doing, and then we got a lot of people applied, and that's the thing that's so hard about it for me, because I worked with all of these companies, over like a 2-year time frame. Right. And these companies worked really hard on their applications. People always talk about it like the small companies did these little throwaway nothing applications. That's absolutely not true. I mean, you can't imagine how hard people worked on this, the professionals that we hired to help with this, the money that was being spent to do this. It was a huge undertaking. It's hard now to look back on what we did in the light of what's happened and like feel great about it, because we all got denied, and that super stinks. But I don't think we're out of it yet. No. AVM has got a few tricks up our sleeve left yet. We've had several members of AVM that have filed suits for appeals. One of them, Grimm, just got a stay today. So huge congratulations to Grimm on their stay. And so, we kept a lot of people in the process long enough to get to today and to be here for what comes next, right? And I don't think the lawsuits that we've seen filed so far are the end of the story. I think there are other things coming. I mean, we're certainly working right now behind the scenes on a broader advocacy plan, taking into account everything that we can see happening over the next year. Because obviously, some companies have had to alter how they're doing business, since these MDOs came out, and altering in that way opens them up to new attacks from the government, new attacks from the prohibitionists. So we still have a lot of work to do. A lot of companies that got denied that didn't necessarily want to go the litigation route want to refile and reapply with FDA. And so one of the things that we're doing, we're having meetings with FDA to kind of clarify these requirements and see exactly what it is they want to see from people, because, I think there are people that do recognize that to be a long-term provider of these products, you are eventually going to have to deal with FDA in some way, shape, or form, whether that is through right now with this PMTA process, or people who are switching to maybe tobacco-free nicotine. The FDA will eventually come back and deal with that at some point. And so it's not like we can sit back and not advocate at this point just because they denied us. Like, we have to work 3 times harder because they denied us.
Right.
And so I think AVM right now is going through this period of transition of like the original thing that we started to do. We got the rug pulled out from under us on that, but we're still as committed to our members as we've ever been. We're as committed to the long-term viability of the market as we've ever been. And we're definitely working on our 2022 advocacy plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I'm here for it. I'm on board for a 2022 advocacy plan. I know this is going to be years.
This is a war, not a one battle.
It is. Yeah. It's a war. Yeah. It's a war. It's a long war. And there's even variables like COP9's coming up. That's a huge just wrench that I don't know how it's going to go. And I read the letter from the 100 plus experts who have written into the World Health Organization about harm reduction. And then the Secretariat of World Health Organization's, tobacco control is saying, we're not even going to talk about vaping until 2023. They're trying to delay it for 2 more years. That's just a whole other huge wild card that, I mean, I don't know how that's going to affect FDA regulations, public perception, worldwide regulations. Every country that's privy to the FCTC follows the World Health Organization, FCTC. And so, it has far-reaching implications. I thought 2021 was going to be a crazy year for vaping. I think 2022 is going to be, and every year after is going to just exponentially get wilder and wilder until we get to that point, the inevitable point where it's like, of course this is harm reduction. Of course this is good for smokers. How could you have ever thought any other way? It's clear as day science.
Prohibition, basically. Those idiots.
Yeah. How could they ever think that would work? Alcohol prohibition. Right. Exactly. Or like seat belts now. Of course, seat belts. Everybody puts on a seat belt. It's like a thing. Second nature. It's in every car.
There were anti-seatbelt zealots back in the day.
Yes.
I know a lot of people aren't old enough to know this, but I Googled it. And there were definitely people that were like, well, you could get hurt on a seatbelt.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't 100% save you,
it
so
doesn't,
it's not worth the risk.
That's the same argument they use. It's not 100% safe. People were saying that, if you get in an accident, it'll actually trap you in your car and you'll die.
Right.
Then if you survive the collision to begin with, you could be trapped in your car. Before that, there were anti-electricity zealots that would put out propaganda posters of like high tension wires and like electing bolts, like attacking children and like attacking animals and messing with your brain, like screwing up your balance, and like anti-electricity people.
I almost spit my
attacking
the children.
It was like high tension wires with lightning bolts attacking the children, and like people driving off the road because electricity gets in your brain and messes with it. And the arguments are unbelievable. There's always been people against progress, and I'm too progressive. I'm just waiting to get to that point where, how could you have accepted any other? How could you have accepted this any other way? Of course. This is harm reduction. Of course, this helps smokers. I can't believe that 2018 FDA thought so archaically back then. Unbelievable. The future documentary about tobacco harm reduction in the United States is going to be banging documentary.
We need to pick who's going to play us, you guys.
No.
Get your votes in now.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think there's got to be like a movie made about this one day, because it's been too interesting to be a part of for it not to be a compelling story. It's just, it's crazy. We've got all like the classical elements. We've got like the little guy up against all these big forces with only like truth on his side and nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And it's like such an epic battle we've been in, but
big rich companies. Oh yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. FDA should be the place where truth prevails, right? Like that should be like the equalizer, where it's like, oh, we finally got to this point. The truth should come out, during these reviews. And it's like, oh, of course, why would we think it's going to be any different than it always has been, right? Which is just like us fighting a herd of nonsense, pretty much.
I get a little optimistic, I get real optimistic, and then I go, oh yeah, that's right. And then I get real optimistic, and then I go, oh yeah, I don't know what I was expecting. And then I get real optimistic, and then it's like, oh, yeah, more MDOs? Okay, well, shit. I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah.
You'd like to think that the science would just win.
Yeah, I want to ask Amanda a question. I may know the answer to this already, but I just want to ask anyway. So with authorizations granted and certain PMTAs, being authorized, I know a lot of that data is kept confidential for the companies, but is there anything that like your organization and members can glean from these authorized applications that could help if in the event that they decide to refile or try to resubmit, or is it all top secret and you don't get to see like the secret sauce, you know what I mean, to help?
Yeah, well, so I hope there are no experts out there that are gonna find out where I'm wrong here. I think this is correct, what I'm about to say, but caveat, ask somebody with a little more expertise than me. But I believe it's the case that if any companies file for an MRTP, which is a modified risk tobacco product, so that's like a step beyond PMTA.
Right.
So PMTA is asking for marketing authorization. MRTP takes it a step further and asks to make health claims about a reduced risk being associated with the product. And if anybody files for an MRTP, then I think redacted documents become public, because we were able to actually learn a lot from previous MRTPs that were filed, and a lot of that data and science was made public from those MRTP submissions. And when we were doing PMTA, we were looking at those and actually learning a tremendous amount from them. But if it's only a PMTA without that extra layer, then I don't believe that information becomes public. And that's the part I'm not entirely sure about. So if somebody in the comments knows better about that, feel free to correct me, but I'm fairly positive that's the case.
I think you are, because I had heard the same thing. And so I think I know a lot more comes out with MRTP, but I wasn't sure if there was anything at all helpful from PMTA, but it unfortunately doesn't super sound like it, which is a little bit of a bummer. Let's all cross our fingers that VUSE Solo decides to apply for an MRTP.
Well, the thing that can be very useful in this is there is a small number of scientific consultants that work on PMTAs for all of these companies, right? And they're very expensive, which is one of the reasons why smaller companies had so much trouble applying. But all of these consultants that work on this, they all work on multiple company applications, and they learn, right? Like
so you can hire their experts, basically.
Exactly. That's the long and short of what I'm getting. And I've already, talked to a few of these people that have worked on some of this stuff and have a little bit of insight into what was in these applications. And they can't share confidential information with any other clients, but it certainly informs what they're doing when they're designing studies for other people. So, yeah, it is helpful in that way. It's not like we can just Google it and see what they did, but we can work with the same people that have knowledge of those applications.
Got it. Well, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. And, we can learn a lot from, going in and meeting with FDA directly, asking them questions about proposed study designs and, finding out what would and wouldn't be acceptable. It's just, the thing that I worry about right now is, how many people are going to be willing to keep trying with FDA, because it is expensive and it is stressful, and, it's not very encouraging at this point. And so I really do hope that there are companies that will keep trying and keep pushing the science forward, keep giving FDA data to make these kinds of decisions. But honestly, at this point, I think a lot of people are kind of stepping back and just evaluating their options and watching how it unfolds.
Yeah, I get that. I've talked to just random liquid manufacturers who are my friends here and there, that some of them they're going to do something, they're going to contest their MDOs, and there's others that they're like, no, that's it. Like, we put everything into these PMTAs. We don't have anything left. We don't have anything left to fight an MDO. We don't have anything left to fight, to file a lawsuit or anything like that.
I hope at the least, not that I'm giving advice to people, but that some of those companies might consider
not legal
TFN,
advice.
Not legal advice, but considering not TFN necessarily, but I don't want to endorse any particular brand, but a non-tobacco derived nicotine as a possible stopgap to, hang on while things are in such a weird flux state at the moment. But I know there are a lot of companies doing that. So
yeah,
hats off to
Yeah,
them.
definitely.
TFNs, and I keeps coming back to like just so much stuff up in the air. Everything's just up in the air, and it just feels like, it felt like all of September was just MDO happiness, and then as soon as September was over, it was like, oh, no more MDOs are coming out. I feel like there has been no MDOs in October.
Yeah, the only MDOs have been those Reynolds flavors, but the bloodbath of open systems MDOs stopped after the turning point reversal.
After the turning point reversal, they stopped doing mass MDOs.
Yeah, and it is my understanding that there are a decent amount, not obviously this big, beautiful, thriving industry that we have right now, but there are a decent amount of open systems companies that are still in.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that, that's something that can be built on. But, they did seem to pause, which thank God on that, because there are a good amount of folks still in.
Yeah.
So maybe that will save some people from some further MDOs.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that in the United States we have this, I think you called it regulatory arson. I think that's my favorite term I've heard used.
Yeah. Your speech was so good. Can we stop for a moment and just like shower you with praise on your speech?
Shower you with praise.
I was sitting on my couch watching it on my phone.
Goosebumps, Amanda Wheeler.
Teary-eyed. I got emotional. I was like, oh my God, Amanda Wheeler. Yes. I'm going to sit down and
goosebumps.
No. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It was my honor. I'll say that. It was my privilege and my honor to be asked to speak for all of us, like on the world stage, right? Because it does need to be said. It does need to be talked about, because what's happened here, America is such an influence on the rest of the world and the rest of the world's decision-making process. And what's happened here has just been an absolute disaster and isn't a model for any country to follow. And so I think it's important to talk about this, in arenas like that, to kind of almost as like a cautionary tale to the rest of the world. Like, please don't follow America's lead on vaping. It's been terrible.
Yeah.
But really just to speak up for all of us who this has meant so much to for so long, right? It really, the reception to that speech blew me away, right? Because, I was invited over to do it, and I had a lot of anxiety about it, because going overseas right now, it's like you have to prepare for this big test, right? You have to have all your papers in order. It's very complicated. And so I just had a lot of anxiety about, like, am I going to get over there and have all my papers correct that I need? Because you got to have all these different tests. You have, your vaccine card, all your passenger locator documents, all this sort of stuff. And so I was so nervous about that. I think when I finally got there, my bag didn't show up. So I had no clothes, right? So I showed up to this conference in like ripped jeans and a sweater, and I had no clothes. And I was like, oh my God, are my clothes going to get here in time for this speech, right? And so it was like a lot of like surrounding anxiety about just like traveling.
Yeah.
But Nick, about this. You had a terrible experience just trying to get back from Houston last week. It was a disaster. But so I think when it finally, when the moment finally came, for me to give this speech, I think I just really like got to this place where it's like, this is our time for like us to tell our story, right? And I'm like lucky enough to be the person that gets to deliver this story, right? And so I don't know, I was really happy to see so many people who were so positive about it and who were so moved by it, because it wasn't lost on me that I was speaking for a large number of people. And I just I wanted to sort of tell that story that's common to all of us. Like, I wanted to tell that faithfully and with the seriousness that it deserves. And so I'm really just happy to hear that. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
You did us proud, for sure.
Yeah, I think killed it.
I'm trying not to cry as I'm talking about it, because like it was very emotional for me.
It was emotional for us watching it. I was like, someone is speaking my heart's song out to the, and like the particular, there were so many points in your speech where like the wording that you chose, the language that you chose, I was just like, I couldn't even thought of that. Regulatory arson, yes. Like,
that was also my favorite line.
It's so speech, good. Right? That hit with me hard. As soon as you said regulatory arson, I was like, oh,
it hit. I was just like, I would have never thought to say that, but that's exactly what needed to be said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it was kind of too, like, if you remember, I mean, it was kind of like a declaration of war, right?
That's
like
how
we're not
yes.
going to take this. Like, here's what's going on. Like, here's what it means. Here, here's all of this awful stuff. And we're not standing for this. Like, this is not the end of the story. This is not the last you're going to hear from us. So buckle up, right? Because we are coming back. And, since that speech, I've been working on this in the background with a lot of people that are really involved in advocacy in the United States, and sort of like, what is this thing that we're going to be doing about this? And so stay tuned, because there's definitely, like, that speech was a signal of something coming, and the something is definitely coming. So it's not coming fast enough, but we're working on it. But yeah, I'm just really glad everybody appreciated it.
It was
turned on the bat
spectacular.
signal.
Yeah, it was turned on the bat signal. You said, I mean, I don't even know. I can't even praise you anymore, but it was everything I needed to hear. It was everything I've ever wanted to say.
Yeah.
And everything I needed to hear. And it's one of those things, there's a few things that I keep squirreled away to, improve my mood when I'm feeling like, well, that's it. All right. Closing my YouTube. See you later, vaping.
You flip the table
when
and you're
I
like,
feel,
screw it.
fuck this. When I'm feeling like that, there's a few things I go to. There's a Mark Gunter piece that I really like to read. There's a Cliff Douglas, his Internecine War piece that I like to read. And that, your speech is in that squirreled away area now that I go to when I need some sort of like rejuvenation or poke or like some energy or some inspiration to continue to do this. That's part of it now, and I can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough, Amanda.
Well, you're very welcome, and that's very good company to be in. So that's my honor to be in such good company there.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think that the biggest thing that I always worry about, right, is that not that they are going to defeat us, but that they are going to wear us down and we are going to give up, right?
Yeah.
Because I believe this 100%. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in a year, right? To that question earlier, like, I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe very, very strongly that as long as we stay in the game, we will win the game, right? But the problem is they make the game so hard. They lie. They try to make us feel shame, even.
I know,
right?
Yeah,
And
gaslight us.
Right. They gaslight us. They hit us with all of these different attacks all at once, right? And it really is, I think, just their attempt to wear us down so that we give up. And so that is my biggest fear. Not that they're going to just flat out beat us, but that they're just going to get us to give up. And so I don't want to see people give up, right? Like, that's why, like, I'm telling people, like, oh, we're opening a 6th vape shop. Like, I'm not just trying to brag about that. It's like, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Like, we're diving in, like, we're continuing to make investments in this. We're continuing to do what we do, because I just want people to see, like, I'm not just saying that I believe in this. Like, we believe in this, and we are here to stay. We've been here from almost the very beginning, and we plan on being around. Like, this is a business that one day I would like to give to my children. Yeah. Right? Because, like, we've built something over the last 10 years that's here for a purpose, and I want that to carry on beyond my husband and I. Like, I want that to carry on, like, down through the years, right, until there are no more smokers. So
no more smokers.
Don't give up, people. Don't give up.
Yeah. Exactly. Please don't give up. I know those of us in advocacy have definitely seen
better days.
Better day, I mean, from a financial support aspect, from a, participating in calls to action standpoint, there's definitely been better years, right? And I completely agree with Amanda. I think that the fastest way that they beat us is by, putting us into a hole of depression that we never come out of, right? Like, just people can't do it anymore, can't handle it anymore, just, give up. And I think that's the danger.
They make you feel defeated, even though we're not defeated, but they sure make you feel like that.
Yes.
And I want I don't know if Mitch Zeller knows who I am, but I would like Mitch Zeller to know who I am. I'd like Mitch Zeller to know who Amanda Wheeler is and see that Amanda Wheeler has been doing this since 2010, since 2009, this whole time, that we're not giving up, that we're not going anywhere. I would like to stay in this, even if I'm alone, just to annoy Mitch Zeller. Just to annoy Mitch Zeller.
Right. And I get these little personal enemies, right? Like especially at like the state and local level. They're just people that lead the charge for the
Your
ants.
narcissists.
And they just like, they get to me. Like they get in my car. They're very specific people who's like, just their face upsets me, right? Much less like when they start speaking. And honestly, it's like fuel, right? It's like fuel for me because these people, it's like they are not going to have the last word on this.
No.
There's no way that person that just lies all the time and just makes it their mission to destroy people, there's no way that they're winning. And that is my sometimes like I'm fueled by like the desire to do the right thing, and sometimes I'm just like fueled by grievances against very specific individuals.
No.
It keeps us going.
Yeah, that's an acceptable. That is an acceptable. That's the way I feel about. That's the way I feel about Mitch Zeller. That is the way I feel about Mitch Zeller.
For us too, that's our Stanton Glantz and like Raja.
Stanton
right?
Glantz,
that's me and Nick's,
Raja.
like, ooh, that's us.
Raja. Yeah, Raja.
Right, and that's what I love about Twitter, because we can all come together with the people we're mutually annoyed at, and all share that.
Yes, on Twitter. Speaking on Twitter, if you're an advocate, get on Twitter because it's great. One of my favorite things is if I'm on Twitter, like I get on Twitter maybe for the first time in the day, and I see like today. CNN headline, vaping sucks and punches your parents or something dumb. And then I go, oh, okay, I got to go comment on that. And then I go over to that thread and it's just advocates commenting. Like as far as the eye can see down, it's just advocates posting randomized controlled trials and Cochrane Tobacco Addiction Group and, Public Health England and all of this science. And here's why you're wrong. And I love that. Right. I feel the love there.
The vape Twitter to me is a magical place. I love it. I love vape Twitter. I love the participants in vape Twitter. I love that vape Twitter is not coordinated, right?
Yep.
It's just like people see
chaotic
something that's
mess.
Just complete BS, and everybody knows at the
swarms
same time, on it, right? And like it happened yesterday with Senator Tammy Baldwin, right?
Yeah.
She deleted the tweet.
Nonsense.
She deleted the tweet, dude.
Nonsense, and the whole comments was just vapors, and then like in very short order, like what was it, like an hour later, that tweet was gone. And that's a small thing, right? That's a small thing, but that's an instance where I guarantee you there was a conversation that happened behind the scenes off Twitter where whoever manages that social media account went, oh crap, and then had to explain that to their boss, right? Because people think these congressional offices, it's just like the person, right? Like the office holder, right? Like Senator Baldwin or whatever. They have a whole team, and that is that senator's office, right? And they all inform the decisions that are made. They're all a part of executing those decisions. And so I know that tweet led to further conversations in that Senate office where it might have been a little bit of impact, but a little impact was made about, hey, maybe we need to be a little more careful about what we say about these things, right? And like what you guys did a few weeks ago when you had that Twitter storm at Raja, I was just sad. I came to that a day too late. I missed the boat. And then I was like, oh, what is this magical thing happening on Twitter? And then I saw that it came from your show, and I was like, oh, that's so awesome. I was so happy you guys did that. I just had FOMO because I missed it.
It was fun. It was really, really fun. It was fun. We'll have to do it again. Pick a someone and just tweet
pick a new person.
Pick a new person. Just tweet a bunch of science at them. But I very much agree with you. I love the Twitter vape space. I love that it's not coordinated, and things will pop up in my feed because of Charles Gardner or Amanda Wheeler or Jim McDonald, and you go, oh, and then you get to comment on it, and you get to be a part of it.
Let me hold my beer.
Oh, here's where we're going. Let's all go comment on this. Yeah, it works really great, and we're all like, at least everybody that I've run across on Twitter is very like camaraderie. It's very like us against them. Like, come on, let's go, guys. You're new here. Let's go. I love it.
No, and Vape Twitter's cool because Vape Twitter's like 100% about harm reduction, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
about like, who owns this business or who owns that business or buy this like fire thing.
Right,
It's just
right.
all about like the concept of like harm reduction and promoting that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think it's super special. It's good. And it's interesting the exposure you can get on Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I guarantee you have more followers than me on Twitter. I have like very, very few Twitter followers, but I feel like I'm able to get the message out to a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
on that platform because it's so public. Like, I have a lot of politicians and journalists that like follow me, and I've had like things that I've tweeted that have gotten like widely picked
Yeah.
up in the media and stuff. And so I think it's a cool place. I've seen, ants have to retract things,
Mm-hmm.
politicians have to retract things, bad science that was dealt with on Twitter. Just like it's like a place where the public conversation is being held,
Mm-hmm.
and there's times when it's really influential. So yes, everybody
Yes.
get on Twitter.
Get on Twitter. And the great thing about Twitter is everybody can help everybody else out. So if Amanda Wheeler has just a mic drop tweet and you see that and I retweet it, that goes to my followers. You guys
Yep,
can
and then
retweet
I
it.
can
That goes
retweet
to
it, and
your
that goes to
followers.
mine.
You
Yeah.
can get good stuff, some real traction on Twitter. Get it noticed. Get it some real traction.
I don't even
Yeah,
use
and
Instagram
Danielle,
anymore.
you share the best, like the best graphics and videos on
Yep.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Every time I see anything that you've made, I'm like, that's so good. And then I look and I'm like, Danielle made
Oh,
that. No
'cause
wonder
Danielle
it's
Jones.
so good.
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
that's awesome.
I
Thank you.
I'm
love.
a big fan of the stuff you put out on Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I love a Danielle Jones chart, like a graph. Oh,
It's my favorite thing.
I live
It
for
is
those.
my favorite.
I live for those. And that's what Twitter's good for. And that you're right. That's where the conversation's happening. It's really where the public conversation's happening around this.
I moved to Twitter and basically almost completely stopped using
Yep.
Instagram and Facebook. Like,
Yep.
I'm all about Twitter.
Yeah.
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 Me too. I spend way more time on there than like all the other platforms put together.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I
because-
literally
just
have the
because-
Twitter window open all day. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of my browser tabs that never
Permanent.
closes. Yes.
Permanent.
Well, it's great because like Vape Facebook is really good in its own way, right? Like Vape Facebook is great when we need to talk to each other, right?
Sure,
But
sure.
like Vape Twitter is like where we need to talk to the world at, and so I really can't say enough about how much I think everybody needs to be on Twitter. If you care about this industry, if you care about harm reduction, go get on Twitter.
Yep. Get on Twitter.
Excellent endorsement for Vape
Excellent
Twitter.
endorsement. I've been trying to get people on Twitter for years now.
He has.
Years.
It's his life's mission.
Twitter, get on Twitter, have the conversation, be a part of the conversation. I think it's fantastic that even though obviously it's Raja Krishnamurthy's office or,
Social media, intern.
whatever, intern, you can still tweet right at a politician, right at their office. Your concerns, your grievances, every day you can tweet at them. I think that's spectacular.
Yeah, well, these offices track this stuff, right? It's like when we
Yeah.
have a call to action to call a congressman, right?
Yeah.
Like, Kirsten Sinema doesn't pick up the phone and answer when we call her office about the vape tax, right? But like that very low-level staffer who checks those voicemails and
Right, has
answers
to,
the
like,
phone, they
write a note,
compile
make a mark.
reports on like,
Right.
we had this many people call in, like this is becoming an issue people are concerned about. You know what I mean? It filters up, right? And Twitter is the same way, right? Like their social media people, that stuff filters up. And so it can be very important.
Mm-hmm. Look, I agree. And I've run across amazing people on Twitter. Like Twitter has brought people like Jacob Greer into my space, and now I follow Jacob Greer, and it's like it's. I feel like my life is better because of some of the people I follow on Twitter. Like
Yeah.
some of the ideas and information I get exposed to, I think makes me a better person.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and I'll tell you this, it's very useful in like state and city level fights.
Is it?
Some of my advocacy Twitter accounts get banned on a regular basis because like when we're fighting a bill, we'll do photos and we'll like tag the politicians in the photo and like share it so everybody comments on it. So they're just getting like 1 million notifications a day, right? And the state
A
level
tsunami.
politicians,
Yeah.
yeah, the state level politicians, they don't have these followings like the federal level. Like when their notifications get blown up by 100 vapors, it's like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Like, there's this huge public outcry. Like,
Right.
we can't do this, right? And it's like, it's been very effective for some, especially state and local fights. So throw that in there too.
Wow, that's
You run
interesting.
a
Clever.
state
That's a
group,
good
wage
tactic.
Twitter war. It's very effective.
Yeah.
Excellent. I
Wow,
like
see,
it.
yeah, I like that. What other advocacy tips on Twitter do you have for us? Do you have any other tips? I feel like you have some good Twitter tips.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we've been doing Twitter Spaces, right? Greg Conley did a
Yeah.
great
I
one
love
a
the
couple
spaces
months
thing.
ago.
Loved it.
Yeah, I think that's a cool technology. So I think it's based a little bit on I forget, there was like an invite only social media platform that just hosted those kinds of conversations, right? Because for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, a Twitter space is really, there's no video involved. Just as many people as you want can come in and listen to the conversation and participate in the conversation that's being had. And there's a social media platform that just does that. It's very popular, but it's like invitation only, right?
Oh.
And so then Spotify made kind of like a ripoff of that.
Yes.
And I remember when Spotify started their ripoff of that, I was trying to get like Dave Morris, who is the president of the Arizona organization. He's also an AVM board member. I was trying to get him to like start this movement of like vapors on that platform, right? And it didn't really go anywhere.
Sure.
But then Greg did this Twitter space like a couple of months ago, and I was like, oh, Twitter has this now? That's amazing. And Greg's conversation that he had on Twitter space, it was right after the MDOs came out. And so you had like all of these like different like consumers and advocates and people who had filed PMTAs. They were just all on there like chopping it up about like what was going on around September.
I learned so much on that first one. I was like, Greg, can you do these like every week? I want this is what I want to do.
Are those like a replayable thing? Can I re-listen to the one from the other day?
That's the one.
So you have to be there.
Like, you have to catch it live.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
very ephemeral. It just
It is
disappears once
great.
it's over.
The one that was going on, what was that, yesterday? Was that yesterday?
Yeah, that
going
was
on?
AVM's Twitter space. We hosted our first one yesterday.
That was fantastic.
Loved
Danielle
it.
Jones gave me the heads up, and I went and listened to it as much of as I possibly could, and it was so good, and there was so much good information that for a second I felt like maybe I shouldn't be listening to all of this. Like, I feel like I'm getting some like background insidey information right now. Like, I'm peering through this little window and seeing a whole other vape regulatory thing I've never looked at before. You know, it's
that
like,
was
whoa.
me exactly.
Yeah.
I was like,
Whoa.
oh my God, this information is amazing.
Whoa. Yeah.
That's the goal of our AVM Twitter spaces, right? So we had the first one yesterday. We had Greg Conley and Paul Blair on, for everybody that didn't catch it live. And that anytime you're having a conversation with Greg Conley and Paul Blair, like, you're always going to get the straight skinny on like what's actually going on behind the scenes. They are very well informed. And so we were really happy to have them on as like the first guest of our first run at this. I think AVM, we're going to aim to do this. I don't know if we're going to do it every week, but maybe every 2 weeks on Monday. Like, we're aiming to have a Twitter space where just like, if you have time, if you want to pop on and listen, you can get very well informed very quickly. And, you know, we want to have like really high quality, like, guests on there that can really let people know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's, and my favorite thing about our Twitter space, we had a little section that I think is going to be a regular occurrence of like the media lapdogs of the week. Like, where's all the coverage of vaping, and let's call them out. And, I was really excited about that part of the Twitter space. Like,
I liked that part.
Do some
I
call
love
outs
that.
on there.
Roasting the news outlets. Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
roasting the
It
news
needs to be
outlets.
done.
Well deserved.
It needs to be done.
roasting.
Yeah.
Like, not,
So-
you know, they deserve it. No,
Yeah,
I
and
loved it.
That's all my great Twitter tips is just, you know, use it for advocacy, you know, stalk the politicians, run your own posts, tag them all, make graphics, tag them in the photo.
Yeah.
Get in the Twitter spaces. I think Twitter's a great place.
Yeah, I'm a
Me
big
too.
fan. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
That's where it always goes down. And that's where, like, I mean, Ivali, that's where everything was going down with Ivali. Everything happened on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I highly encourage you guys to get on Twitter. There were some super chats that came in that I've completely ignored this whole stream, and I apologize. So I'm going to read those right now. But New Wave Dave said, my cat stuck his head out of his litter box, threw a turd at me, and said, stop being a punk and give Nick $5. So thank you, New Wave Dave.
He gets more creative every week.
His cat is a little bit of a psychopath, and that's okay.
I mean, if
Dave.
my cat threw a turd at me, I would do whatever they wanted.
Exactly.
It's like, please don't ever do that again.
Please never
Whatever
throw
you
a
need.
turd at me ever again, cat. Good Lord. Vape and Wolf, that's very gracious of you. I appreciate that. Sexy King Phil says, Amanda Wheeler, you're awesome. Look, I agree. I think we're all pretty well agreed.
Yep.
Amanda Wheeler is awesome. Barbara Burgess says,
Sexy King Phil.
Yeah, Sexy King Phil. It's not just a clever name. New Wave Dave's cat sent a telepathic message to my cats and said, give TBN a few quid. Thanks for all you've done. Love to my TVB Vape fam. Barbara, I appreciate that very much.
Hi, Barbara.
And now I'm realizing we live in a world with cats that have the ability to throw turds
And have ESP.
Telepathic cats. Telepathic cats.
I don't have one, so I guess I'm safe.
What a futuristic wonder world. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're
pet free. Pet and child free.
No telepathic cats over there? All right.
No.
Vape and Wolf says, vaping is saving people's lives here in the UK. You know, it's saving people's lives everywhere.
But especially in the UK because their government allows it to.
Especially in the UK.
Oh, man, when I was over there giving that speech, right, I was just shocked looking around at the amount of vaping that is everywhere in London.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, at one point, so I went to see Hamilton, and I went out during intermission, and there were about 30 people outside vaping and nobody outside smoking.
That's incredible. It
was like the most.
I want to see that in my life.
I was happy to see it. I was a little sad because like we need to bring that over here.
Hard.
Right, but I'm very happy you guys in the UK have it. It warmed my heart to see it.
Yeah. The UK is just some sort of harm reduction paradise right now. Some sort of tobacco harm reduction paradise right now.
You can ask my husband. Sometimes we're driving around and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my God, that person's vaping!
I never see wild vapors anymore. I see like
maybe one a month, and I get ridiculously excited. I literally want to pull over and be like, hi, do you want to be friends? Like,
I noticed you're vaping.
Who are you? I'm Danielle.
Do you want to vape together? Is that weird?
So
What's going on? Yeah, I see a lot of cigarette smokers. Los Angeles has an exorbitant amount of cigarette smokers still. Blows me away. Every time I drive through Hollywood, just cigarette smokers everywhere. It's unreal. Well, what do you expect when the California Department of Public Health tells you to just keep smoking cigarettes? So it's like, I guess they're just doing what they've been told to do. That's unfortunate. Chasing Clouds and Flavor Review says, I have always felt the FDA was using PMTAs as a tool to weaken vape companies' defense after denial, as I never expected anyone to pass the test. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak on FDA's part. I can't possibly speak on FDA's part. I want to believe, again, that FDA is following the science and doing things correctly by the book. That's what I'd like to believe, you know? That's what I'd like to believe. Davis Vapes, that's very gracious of you. What is the opposition's logical argument against? What is the opposition's logical arguments against vaping?
There's so many.
The logical argument against vaping. The only logical argument.
Logical.
The only logical.
Oh, I missed that caveat.
Yeah, it has to be a logical argument against vaping.
I vote none.
I vote none too. The only one that I can kind of see that. No, I take that back. I mean, they talk about addiction. That's it. But it's addiction, you know. It's not an addiction.
No,
Two,
they don't even know what that word means, and they're using it.
Two, if it is an addiction, if it's an addiction to something that doesn't harm you, then are we just mad at the sake of addiction just for the sake of being mad at it? if there's no harm involved, it's like if you were addicted to
wearing blue sweaters.
Wearing blue sweaters, would you say that person has a horrible addiction?
Leave people alone, and
that's
let them
the
do
only
whatever
argument that I can that I could feasibly see is like
vices. Everybody's got one. You know, some are less controversial than others, but everybody's got their vices.
Yeah. Yes.
People don't mind other people's business too much.
Exactly. People need to stop worrying about what other people are doing to, relax or enjoy. Leave them alone. Worry about your own.
Well, Danielle, you're becoming more libertarian every time we stream. It just makes me so happy.
This is why I'm a bad progressive or whatever it is that you call me. Far left. No. I'm a moderate.
I am a moderate
for the record who means.
I very much agree. I'm a big fan of if there's no victim, there's no crime. Just leave people alone.
Leave them alone.
Just leave people alone. Leave people alone. Someone wearing blue sweaters every day. No.
I don't think there is a logical argument. I mean, they've got the youth argument, which has been their most successful argument, but it's all
But that doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
Misrepresenting statistics and hyperbole, all of that. It's not real. I think the way that this should have been handled, right? If you ask me what I think should have been done about this, right?
We are asking you.
Yes.
Some really strong, tight manufacturing standards, right? Because, there could be some legitimate cause for concern with unsafe mixing conditions, unknown additives being put into products, that sort of thing. But that is very easily solved with manufacturing standards, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of this, you've got to spend, $40 million to prove that this product you've been making for 10 years that has never harmed anyone is not harming
Isn't
people.
harming people.
Well, I've got, 10 years worth of real world experience here. I'm sorry that I don't have $40 million to pay you your hush money, right? To get it across the line. But come take a look at our manufacturing facility, look at the standards that we follow, look at the quality of ingredients that we use. And that really gives the information that the FDA needs to know.
Yes.
Right. But we're beyond that at this point.
And the bar is so low for any other consumable, consumer product, right? It does not cost $40 million to create a yogurt company, right? But you can make it. It's not approved by the FDA in any way. You don't have to go through a pathway. You don't have to whatever. You need to follow some guidelines on your labeling. There are some manufacturing standards, and then you sell your yogurt to the masses. It's not that difficult, and it's not that rigorous. And sure, something terrible
Yogurt could kill people.
Happen. We do get, salmonella and E. coli outbreaks every once in a while. But by and large, it's a pretty safe system generally. And everything on the grocery store shelves, it's not like an FDA inspector is looking through every box of Wheaties before it's put on, the grocery shelf. We operate this way for everything. Yes. I don't understand why vaping should be any different. And I hate that argument too for open system. You can add things to it. You can add things to a Red Bull.
Yeah.
What
I could put gasoline in my beer. What's the point?
I could pour, toxins in my popcorn. You don't get to control what happens after the consumer buys it and takes it home. Mm-hmm. You should control or be aware of what happens before it's sold to the consumer. Yes. I'll agree to that. But afterwards, you need to let Jesus take the wheel. You know what I mean? Just leave everybody.
Just let the consumer be the consumer.
Exactly.
I absolutely agree.
Every product can be modified, basically.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Everything that Amanda, you said too, because I've always said a similar thing in that I think that FDA needs to regulate the safety of the products. So make sure that our e-liquids have whatever nicotine grade they choose, whatever high grade propylene glycol, whatever, make the products as safe as possible. But beyond that, that's where their jurisdiction ends. They can regulate the safety of the products, but not the safety of the effects of the products. That's where I land. I think they should be regulating the safety of the products.
What you said.
Regulate the liquid to make sure that it's the safest e-liquid possible.
And like what they put on the label matches
Right.
what's
What
in
they
the
put on the
bottle,
label
like
matches
that
on the
sort of
bottle,
thing.
trace recall, ingredient list, whatever. Make it really safe. But beyond that, you can't dictate how someone's going to use it. Like you were saying, after the consumer has the product, how they use the product is up to them.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base.
No, I agree. And I've said for the longest time, this is like a hill I will die on, and no one cares, but it's fine. It's my hill.
Get it.
Vaping should be regulated by FDA in the same way that dietary supplements are. I will die on this hill.
I agree
don't
with you.
care.
Yeah.
Right? There's a list of ingredients that you're allowed to use. If you go beyond that, you do have to go through a crazy pathway that's kind of like PMTA that's annoying. But if you stick to the approved, things, you're good. They control what you can put on your bottle, what kind of marketing claims that you can make. And other than that,
It's
go
just
forth
consumer product.
and sell lion's mane or mushroom, I don't know, whatever.
Brain pills, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I feel like we fit the best into dietary supplements above all other existing, regulatory checkboxes. But
Yeah.
nobody cares, and it's
No.
too late for that.
Sounds
so.
way too reasonable.
Yeah,
Danielle.
that sounds-
Way
I
too
know,
reasonable.
right?
Way too reasonable.
Way too reasonable.
It is way too reasonable. And they could have taken a reasonable path. I mean, vaping's been around in the U.S. for 14 years now. And now in 2021, we get one tobacco cartomizer approved after 14 years, FDA.
And a discontinued disc
And a
to chew on.
discontinued mint disc
Don't forget.
from Verve.
Nick, you just really like throwing that graphic.
I
up there
do.
at the top.
Verve. I also just kind of like the word verve. Verve. Got a lot of
Ooh, the
verve.
British spin. It sounds better
Got
with
a lot
that.
of verve. Yeah.
It's way
Verve.
better name.
Verve.
That way.
Verve.
The American way is kind of weird.
Verve. Well, you can't get it anyway, so it doesn't much matter. Just discontinued, FDA approved marketing order to a product that doesn't even exist anymore.
Well,
Maybe
are
they'll
they
bring
going
it
to bring it back?
That
Like,
was my
nobody liked
question.
it the
Like,
first
now
time,
that
but
you've
it's
got
FDA
it.
approved or FDA authorized.
Yeah.
Or, see, I keep saying approved. It's just like it's almost like
Say
a
it's
synonym,
fine.
right? I forget that it's a technical term, right? But yeah, now that it's authorized, right? Are they going to bring this thing back? What's the plan?
I would
here?
imagine it would have to be fiscally, rewarding if you have
you're
a.
one of the only ones legally allowed to be sold.
Yeah, why would you not?
Like, you should corner that market.
Yeah. Well, look, I agree. Why would you not? Why would you
saying
not?
I want to chew on a disc, but I mean, maybe somebody does. I don't know.
Look, I use snus. I use General Snus all the time. I used General Snus when I flew back and forth from Texas. And in Texas, I used it a bunch there too. There was a couple more super chats here that came in. Fishy, bro. Hope you're doing good. Fishy just says, thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. Absolutely.
Thank you, Amanda.
Mallory Gates says, here's Danielle's BB-8 beeping in Morse code. Toss you $5, then give... Oh, toss you $5, then give Raja money for his campaign. I think she meant than.
Oh, okay. I
You
was
get the
gonna say,
$5.
wait.
Raja's not getting the $5.
You trying to get collections for Raja? No.
Oh, I wish
No.
you could react. If it was like,
Oh, that would be hysterical.
that would be unbelievable. That
is a missed opportunity for me. I should have had something going there.
Rodrigo in with the final super chat here. Thanks, Amanda Wheeler. I'm from Argentina, and we appreciate everything you do. Thanks to Nick and Danielle for a better quality of life. Yes. Aww. Shout out to all the Argentinian vape fam out there. I don't know exactly what Argentinian vape regulations look like right now.
I don't know.
I know there was some big movement in Mexico recently. Today, there was a big thing in Mexico.
That was awesome.
That was like a big deal.
Lately, does Mexico feel more progressive than the United States?
100%. Well, I wish. Where could I? I'm.
Two decisions
I saw
lately.
it
That's
today.
what I'm basing this on, but
I saw it today, and then I couldn't
this
see
on
it
Twitter
anymore.
earlier. There was like I
They-
don't know.
they're
the
like
Mexican
Supreme Court,
system.
right? Ruled
Yeah,
that
it was like
the flavor
I think
ban
their
was
version of the
unconstitutional.
Supreme court said, yeah, they couldn't do that. It violated the law.
Yeah, it says after 10 years of an unjust ban, the Mexico Supreme Court has ruled that the prohibition of commercializing the electronic cigarette. Adults have the right to choose the electronic cigarette, continue to fight to make harm reduction a reality for all. That's a Twitter translated tweet there. But apparently, after 10 years of a ban on commercial e-cigs, the Mexico Supreme Court just said that was
unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional.
Whatever, right?
Overturned the prohibition on e-cigs in
Mexico.
Mexico.
It was a total... Sorry, I said flavor ban. That's obviously wrong. Very interesting.
Unjust
Yay,
ban.
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico. Awesome. So that's like a little thing. That's another domino falling. The Philippines is another domino falling.
We absolutely have to. We will run across well, maybe not the north. They're getting weird. But we could go south to get our vape. Canada's getting a little weird. But
with
we can
vaping,
now go to Mexico.
yeah. Canada's getting real weird with vaping. Flavor bans and nicotine caps.
US 2.0 when it comes to like tobacco control. They're like drinking all the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And Australia. Australia sucks butts right now for vaping.
Cannot.
Oh man,
We won't talk about Australia.
It sounds like Canada's like surpassed us on tomfoolery. It seems like they're even worse
Tomfoolery.
than America.
It's a good word.
That
yeah,
is
and
really
then
good.
Australia sounds like the nightmare scenario. I wish I knew more about like global vaping policies in all these different countries, but I don't.
I'm
I know
so bad
UK,
about it.
and I know a little bit about Australia because I have a couple of Australian friends in the vape space. But it's a lot to keep up on, especially when there are language barriers to like keeping up on the news and stuff. But you know, after the GTNF speech, I got invited to speak at some of these events surrounding COP9, right? And so I'm trying to get more educated on some of these global fights, but because you know it's really sad what's going on in some of these countries that have far worse smoking rates than we do. A lot of these, especially lower income countries where people don't have a lot of choices. And then, you know, you've got Bloomberg swooping in with all of their ridiculous billions of dollars, just trying to bully these countries where, you know, it's more needed than anywhere.
Yeah. And he got caught in the Philippines. I know, I mean, we've brought this up a few times on this show, but he got straight up caught red-handed in the Philippines. I don't know if anything is going to come of it. I know that the Philippines now is going to completely restructure their whole tobacco control, everything for vaping. But yeah, he got straight up caught in the Philippines, giving his money to their FDA. And when they questioned the FDA, oops, yeah, we did receive a bunch of dark money from Bloomberg. Why do you ask? That's weird.
Oh,
right.
That?
Yeah.
Well, not to keep
that?
making everything about America, but that's one of the things I hope that we see come out here soon through all of the FOIA requests that have been filed and through discovery and some of this litigation. I hope we can uncover where this sort of non-scientific influence took place in the FDA.
Yes.
I really want to see that.
I want to see all of that come to light. I want Matt Myers to feel foolish. That's what I want. I want Matt Myers to feel foolish for rallying against this for so long.
I don't know if he's capable of that kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Self-awareness,
basically.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Still want it to happen. And I'll never know if it does, or maybe I will. Maybe one night I'll just go, oh, he felt it. He felt foolish for a second.
Your cat will tell you.
I want him to feel foolish. I want Dick Durbin to feel foolish. I want Raja Krishnamurthy to feel foolish. That's my only goal. I don't want an apology. I don't care. I just want them to shut up and feel foolish. Yep. That's what I would like.
Yeah.
Shut up and feel foolish.
I would agree with you on that.
Let's see if there's any last super chats here. No, that's it. Thanks, Amanda Wheeler, for being here on this stream today. Very, very much appreciated. Love your insights. Love what you're doing with the American Vapor Manufacturers Association. Love that you're opening a 6th JVAPES location.
Yep.
Love that you are daily inspiring vapors to continue fighting this good fight and to, let's save some adult smokers' lives.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me on. I was really excited to be invited onto the show.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of both of you guys, and I really deeply appreciate and respect how you are using your platform, Nick, because it would be easier to ignore all of this stuff, right? And just do like positive, like product reviews and like cool things like that. Because this stuff is really a bummer. It's hard sometimes for vapors to hear this stuff. But you have such a big platform, and I'm just so appreciative that you use it to keep people educated and get people to take action on stuff. So
well,
thank
yeah,
you.
thank you very much. Yeah, look, and we're all on the same team here. You know, I'm on your team, you're on my team. We're just fighting the good fight. And for me, I'm sure it was the same for you. I felt like I had no choice. I was like, nope, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about news. We have to talk about advocacy. We have to talk about policy. We have to talk about this. Sorry. It's just going to happen. Like, this is crucial. This is crucial stuff. Not as fun as the new billet box Boro bridge that I built last night on my stream, but far more important.
Necessary.
Far more important. Far more important. So that's it. I guess we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I have a link to Danielle and Amanda Wheeler's Twitter in the description. Follow both of these wonderful people on Twitter. Get on Twitter. Be part of the conversation. You know, nothing about us without us. So be part of the conversation. Do testimonials. Do calls to actions. Just trying to rally the troops here. I appreciate you guys. All that stuff. Keep fighting the good fight. I don't have an outro for the stream yet still, so we're just going to throw it back to the hold screen. So